Hi everyone, it's Rhea, and today I'm going to be going through all the 12 zodiac signs and sharing with you your horoscope for November. November is a critical month in astrology because we have so many retrogrades happening and we are in one of the most powerful, potent months of the year. It's Scorpio season. We're going to have two powerhouse lunar events, a full moon in Taurus and a new moon in Scorpio, which is really emphasizing on breaking free, emphasizing on your spiritual psychic gifts and abilities and transformation. And you're probably already feeling that mystical, spiritual, psychic energy as well as the intensity picking up. Because when we get into November, it's almost like we're not going to be able to grasp the concept of time because everything is moving so fast. There's areas of your life from the past that are coming up for you to confront and learn from and master and navigate, and then you're still here in the present, picking up on everything in the now moments, but then also there's glimpses of the future. So everything is happening simultaneously. And there could be a lot of shifts, changes, and developments in the month of November. It's a very action-packed and very busy month. So what I'm going to do in this video is go through all the 12 zodiac signs and share with you your horoscope for November. I'll leave all the timestamps down below. You can listen for your sun, moon, and rising. So with that being said, let's get into it. Hey Aries, Aries rising, let's get into your horoscope for November. November is action-packed. We've got so much intensity, so many retrogrades, and so much opportunity to transform. Let's kick off with a retrograde. So November the 7th, we've got Uranus retrograde re-entering Taurus, which means it's re-entering your second house. The second house rules over finances, resources, what you own, and your self-worth. Now, for the last couple of years, this energy has been very strong, and just recently, Uranus moved into Gemini, but because of retrograde motion, Uranus is moving back into your second house, which means there's a few more lessons, and the cycle still needs to be completed until next year of April. So it's about breaking free in this area of life, it's about innovating in this area of life, it's about finding your sense of self-worth, and as well as feeling very free and independent in this area of life. So that's where the focus with this Uranus retrograde is going to be at. We also have Jupiter going retrograde in the sign of Cancer on November the 11th, which means it's impacting your fourth house of home, family, and your personal life, and also your sense of belonging and stability and security. Jupiter is a very positive energy and it can make you really overdo it. So it can make you be too positive, it can make you splurge, it can just give you a great sense of confidence, which is amazing. However, sometimes Jupiter can become very imbalanced and it can overdo it and be very excessive. So the retrograde energy actually supports us in reflecting and looking at where we are going over the top, or where we're overdoing it, or where we're being excessive, so that we can have more boundaries and know our limits, so that we are not self-destructing. So it can be very beneficial, this retrograde energy, and the focus is for you regarding home, family, sense of belonging, and security and stability. Now let's get into Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde kicks off on November the 9th in Sagittarius, in your 9th house of the mind, learning, education, philosophies, and travel. So it seems like there's a lot of going over this area of life. Maybe you had plans to travel, but you're having to slow down. And even though Mercury retrograde is making you slow down, this area of life is still showing a lot of developments and a lot of moving forwards, because November the 4th, we've got Mars in Sagittarius. We're going to have the Sun in Sagittarius on November the 21st and Venus in Sagittarius on November the 30th. So there's still so much energy here in terms of opening up your mind, expanding your horizons, learning, education, philosophies, growing, traveling, going on adventures. There's still so much opportunity. But during the Mercury retrograde phase and the few first weeks of November, I say first few weeks, there's only 4 weeks, so let's just say the first 2.5 weeks of November, you're still having to kind of slow down in this area of life. But as the Mercury retrograde moves back into Scorpio on November the 18th and moves into your 8th house, the focus then goes back into matters of shared finances and resources, intimacy, and deep spiritual transformation. So it seems like there's going to be a lot of going over certain things that you share with others, or going over your relationships, or even if you're working on some just deep shadow work or transforming parts of yourself, doing a lot of healing work. That's where the focus is. And you may be very analytical and really observing, analyzing, and even overthinking, but there's almost like a mystical, magical, intuitive element with Mercury in Scorpio. Now, speaking of Scorpio, there's a lot of Scorpio energy going around because we're going to have the full moon in Taurus on November the 5th, which means the sun will be in your 8th house and the moon will be in your 2nd house. So the sun shows where your core focus is at, and that's going to be in the 8th house and all that I just spoke about with Mercury retrograde. But your emotional attachment and your inner realm and what you're feeling is going to be connected to the 2nd house, which is about what you own, is about your self-worth. And it seems like there's some tension here that's going to have to be balanced out during this time. And if you are kind of navigating or negotiating or figuring out this axis, this is a time where you may find yourself in a position where something changes, shifts, or transforms. Excuse my dog, there's a lot of fireworks going on, and you know how it goes. Dogs do not like fireworks, and I actually don't like fireworks myself either. Now, speaking about this full moon in Taurus, it's going to be a really important axis for you this month because there's a lot of focus here. We're going to have Venus that enters Scorpio November the 6th, and that's going to also be opposing Uranus re-entering Taurus. So it's showing an imbalance, it's showing an imbalance of energy, it's showing there's disharmony here, and there's a lot to be worked out, especially regarding how you feel about yourself and the spiritual transformation you're trying to make happen in your life. And then when we get into the new moon in Scorpio that happens on November the 20th, we're going to have a lot of focus on your 8th house. We're going to have Mercury retrograde, the sun, the moon, and Venus there. So there could be new developments and changes and shifts happening, new beginnings occurring. And Uranus will be opposing this new moon. So again, it's asking you to break free. It's asking you to be independent. And these are just some things that may come up for you anyways. And yeah, there could be some tension here, but you will persevere through it. So Aries rising, wishing you all the best this month. It's a wild month. Things are moving fast, but you got this. Take care, and I'll speak with you soon. Taurus rising, let's get into your horoscope for November. So November is action-packed, and there's so much to get into. We've got retrogrades, we got a full moon in your sign, and it's Scorpio season, your opposite sign, which means the intensity is all the way on. So let's start off with the retrogrades. Now, November the 7th is a big one for you because Uranus re-enters your sign, which means it leaves your 2nd house and it moves back into your 1st house, which means it goes back into one of the most sensitive areas of your life, which is the 1st house. It's all about you, your identity, your sense of self, life path, purpose, goals. And for the last couple of years, you've been the main character with this Uranus in Taurus transit, and this energy is going to be going on for a couple of months until next year, April. So hold on tight. This is still shifting and changing you, your mentality, your identity, your life path and purpose. It's still impacting relationships. It's teaching you about independence and freedom. And you've been going through this for quite some time, a couple of years. And it's just a few more lessons to integrate until you've mastered this energy. Then November the 11th, we've got Jupiter retrograding in the sign of Cancer, which is impacting your 3rd house of the mind, mentality, communication, and your daily environments and travel, which means that Jupiter retrograde is going to support you and help you in learning more about your boundaries and your limits with this area of life. Jupiter is all about going big or going home. It's an overdoer, it's extravagant, it can be excessive, and sometimes it can be too positive. So with this energy, retrograde energy, it teaches us to slow down a bit so that we don't overdo it to the point of destruction. So we know our limits and boundaries. And for you, it could simply be about your mentality and your mind during this time because that's the 3rd house. And with Jupiter, it's just making you so positive, but we also got to be very much in tune and in touch with reality. We got to be in touch and in tune with the pros and the cons. So that's what this retrograde will support you in. Let's get into Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde kicks off on November the 9th in Sagittarius. So it starts off in your 8th house. The 8th house is shared finances, resources, intimacy, and deep spiritual transformation. And there's going to be a lot of energy in that area of life because Mars will be there on November the 4th. We've got the Sun entering Sagittarius on November the 21st, and we've got Venus entering Sagittarius on November the 30th. So with Mercury retrograde in the 8th house, it's about going over, reflecting, reanalyzing this area of life. Perhaps there's a lot of back and forth, negotiating, or figuring certain things out. But there's still a lot of developments because you've got Mars, which shows stamina, momentum, and energy, and you've got the Sun, which is showing a lot of core focus here, and Venus as well. Now, when we get into November the 18th, Mercury retrogrades back into Scorpio, which means it enters your 7th house, your opposite sign. There's also a lot of energy here because we're going to have Venus entering Scorpio November the 6th. We've got the Sun here until November the 21st when the Sun shifts into Sagittarius. We've got a new moon here, and we've got a full moon in your sign. Now, when we have Mercury retrograde in Scorpio, it's impacting relationships. And that's going to be a huge focus this month because there's a lot of relationship energy happening for you. Mercury retrograde is going to really impact the way you're thinking and your communication. So there may be some intense thoughts about relationships. There may be some intense conversations. There may be just intense stuff that just comes up in your relationship where you gotta figure things out. Otherwise, there's some decisions to be made, especially with Uranus opposing your 7th house. Now, when we get into the full moon in Taurus on November the 5th, we've got the Sun in your 7th house and the moon in your 1st house. This is showing that the core focus is on relationships and other people, but your emotional attachment and what you're feeling is very much connected with you, yourself, and your identity and your life path and purpose. And it seems like there's an imbalance, and these two energies are not seeing through. And this full moon is happening at 13 degrees of Taurus. So if you have any planets at 13 degrees, this will impact you the most. Now, during this full moon, we've got Uranus that's going to be at 0 degrees of Gemini, and Mars that's going to be at 0 degrees of Sagittarius. They're going to be forming an opposition in your 2nd and 8th house, which is showing that these energies are at odds, they're in a conflict, and they're not seeing eye to eye. You have Uranus in your 2nd house, which is very much concerned with what you own, your resources, and your self-worth, and it wants a lot of freedom and independence, and it wants to fully be able to express itself, and it wants change. And then you've got Mars, which can be a very confrontational energy. It can be very defensive, very chaotic sometimes, in the 8th house of shared finances, resources, intimacy, and deep spiritual transformation. So it may just be as simple as being at odds with somebody else, a third party, and there's conflict or chaos that needs to be balanced. And through this full moon in Taurus, there may be significant changes or shifts that occur. There could be endings of some sort, or something being let go of, or a release. On November the 20th, we have a new moon in Scorpio, so all that energy is going to be in your 7th house, the Sun, Moon, Mercury retrograde, and Venus. However, Uranus at this time will be in your 1st house, so there could be developments happening with relationships, with committed partnerships, with other people. And just because there's a lot of energy here, there's a lot of going over, a lot of reflecting, a lot of intense conversations, a lot of intense emotions coming up. But the core of it is also Uranus in your 1st house, which is showing that you want to break free, you want change, you want something different. And if you're in a relationship and you're already feeling that pressure, things may change during this new moon. Or perhaps it could be as simple as also meeting somebody new, or something dramatically changing in a relationship or even in a partnership. But it's also connected with you and your life path and purpose because of Uranus. So there's a lot going on, Taurus rising, in the month of November. Like, so much. Saturn is also going direct in Pisces on November the 27th in your 11th house of friends, groups, and networks. So there could be a lot of changes, and it can be overwhelming, but life is moving fast because we've got a lot of shadow work to clear so we can evolve. I do apologize about my dog. There's a lot of fireworks going on, so he's feeling a bit unsettled. I personally do not like fireworks either. But anyways, I will speak with you soon. Have an incredible month, and I hope it all works out in your favor. Take care. Hey Gem Rising, let's get into your astrology for November. November is a wild month. We have so many retrogrades and so much intensity, and let's get straight into it. Starting off with November the 7th, Uranus retrogrades back into Taurus. So, for a brief moment, Uranus has been in your sign, and it may not have been impacting everyone because it's really degree based. And for those early gems and early gem dominants, you may have felt a lot of changes happening in your life, or you just feel like your mentality, your identity, a lot is just shifting in your life overall. But those of you that have, let's say, for example, late gem, you still got a long while until you reach that Uranus transit. But now Uranus is moving back into Taurus, which means it's moving back into your 12th house. So if you think about the last couple of years and Uranus's influence, that energy is coming back up for you. In the 12th house, Uranus is very spiritual. It wants spiritual independence, spiritual freedom. It's breaking away from past belief systems, spiritual belief systems. It's also working on its expression. It's expressing itself through very different forms of creativity. And this energy is going to be going on for a couple of months until next year of April, okay? And then Uranus will then gradually move forward and then move back into Gemini. We also have Jupiter retrograding this month in the sign of Cancer on November the 11th, which means it's going to be impacting your second house. The second house is the house of finances. It's about resources, what you own, and your self-worth. With Jupiter, Jupiter is very extravagant and can be very excessive and overdo it, which can sometimes become destructive. Retrograde energy with Jupiter supports us in understanding where we're overdoing it and where we kind of need to kind of have some healthy boundaries and be more in balance so that we don't have destructive tendencies. Jupiter in the second house can be very much into splurging and just spending because it's just feeling so good, but then later on that can be problematic. So this retrograde energy is actually going to support you to know your boundaries and know your limits. We also have Mercury, your ruler, going retrograde in two different signs. It kicks off its retrograde cycle in Sagittarius, which is going to be impacting your 7th house because it's your opposite sign. There's a lot of 7th house relationship energy. The 7th house is other people, relationships, commitment, and this area of life has so much energy. I mean, Mars is going to enter Sagittarius on November the 4th. We've got the Sun entering Sagittarius on November the 21st. We've got Venus entering Sagittarius at the end of the month, November the 30th. So a lot of energy, a lot of movement, a lot of development in this area of life, which means relationships can take center stage in your life this month. And there may be going over relationships, going back into some like issues from the past regarding relationships, or beginning new relationships, starting new relationships, and developing them forward. But you're thinking a lot, you're analyzing a lot, you're assessing a lot. So there's a lot of thinking going on, a lot of mental energy, because that's Mercury and it's connected to other people. This may even be a time where you're having really important, profound conversations that have been brewing up for quite some time, but this is a time where you kind of just say what you've been feeling. And with Mars in the 7th house, sometimes it could be really passionate, sometimes this could mean that moving quick in a relationship, sometimes it can mean conflict in a relationship. So for a lot of people, it's going to be like almost like an overwhelm of relationship energy, and it's kind of like you're going through every stage of a relationship, the conflict, the shadows, the passion, the romance, the love, all of it in one go. But there's a lot to learn here, and as this energy starts to move forward in December, everything will come into perspective. Now, Mercury will re-enter Scorpio on November the 18th, which means the focus will then start to become about your everyday life routine, habits, self-care, wellness, health, and work. That's the energy you're going to be reassessing, reevaluating, thinking about a lot, and maybe there's going to be some profound changes in that area of life as well. November the 5th, we've got a full moon in Taurus. So we're going to have the sun in your 6th house and the moon in your 12th house. So it's about balancing the 12th and 6th house axis. The 6th house being the house of this mundane world, how your life is structured, your routines, habits, health, and also work life. 12th house being more of an isolated area of life, which is very convoluted because it rules a couple of different things. You can get into it ruling your spirituality, your connection with the divine, your creativity, your sensitivities, your intuition, your dreams, and also this is the area of life that reveals your tendencies to escape. So it seems like you need a balance between your everyday life and your creativity and your spirituality and just having me time as well. And with this full moon in Taurus, there's also an opposition between Mars and Uranus. At the time of this full moon, Mars and Uranus will both be at 0 degrees. Uranus at 0 degrees of Gemini and Mars at the 0 degrees of Sagittarius, which is going to be impacting your first and seventh house axis. And this is all about relationships. So relationships are going to be changing here. That, like I said, with Mars there can be conflict, and with Uranus being in your first house, it seems like there's a conflict between relationships and your identity and what you want and where you're headed, and it's just it's not aligning with whoever you're with or other people, and that's the imbalance. Now, it seems like something is either going to change or release or come to an end or transform, because there's so much friction and frustration here. There needs to be something that changes, because if it doesn't change, then it's just going to really be very intense and chaotic. So it seems like your everyday life, your health, happiness, work life, your identity, life, and relationships, that's going to be the highlight of this full moon in Taurus, and something is going to push you to make significant changes and breakthroughs and transformation. Now, speaking of all this Scorpio energy, because listen, not only do we have a full moon in Taurus where the sun will be in Scorpio, but we're also going to have Venus in Scorpio November the 6th. We've got a new moon in Scorpio November the 20th, all happening in your 6th house of health, habits, routine, your everyday life. This is again emphasizing the full moon in Taurus energy, because you've got Uranus that is going to be opposing this new moon. By the time we get into this new moon, Uranus will be back into Taurus. So it seems like you need more harmony between your everyday life and taking time out for yourself, for your well-being, and you need almost like spiritual replenishment or a spiritual reset. You need more time for yourself, and there could be something that begins anew during this time, something that significantly changes or develops that is very spiritual, that is very intuitive, that really brings forth a lot of things to light for you, and even like receiving downloads of epiphanies or really spiritual dreams that can support you and guide you in how you should maneuver during this time of whatever is going on in your life. Specifically for you, it's related to your 6th house, but for everyone it's going to be different because your chart is unique and it could be making aspects to other planets. So new beginnings, new chapters happening November the 20th with a new moon in Scorpio regarding your everyday life, how you take care of yourself, your habits, routine, and your work life. So Gem rising, it's quite a month. It's a huge one. Did I forget to mention that Saturn is also going direct in Pisces on November the 27th in the house of career goals and ambitions? So that energy is going to also start to now move forward, and it's about integrating the lessons of Saturn. So Gem rising, it's quite a wild month. Buckle up. May it work out in your favor, and I'll speak with you soon. Cancer rising, let's get into your November horoscope. So November is action-packed. We've got retrogrades, it's Scorpio season, a lot of changes and shifts happening. Let's start off with the retrogrades. So November the 7th, Uranus re-enters Taurus, which means it's moving back into your 11th house of friendships, groups, networks, and your hopes and wishes for the future. You've gone through this energy for several years, but now for the next couple of months, you're kind of going back into the past, learning a few more lessons, and really evolving from this energy. Now, this may have to do with friends, groups, networks, finding your independence, finding new friendships, or joining new groups or clubs that are more in alignment with you, as well as your hopes and wishes and visions for the future also evolving. And then we have Mercury going retrograde on November the 9th in the sign of Sagittarius. So it kicks off its retrograde in the 6th house. So what is the 6th house? We're looking at your everyday life, routine, your schedule, how that's all structured, health, wellness, as well as work. And there's going to be a lot of energy in your 6th house. So Mercury retrograde is going to help you to slow down and reevaluate and reflect in this area of life. And the reason this energy is going to be so busy and action-packed this month is because on November the 4th, we've got Mars entering Sagittarius. We've got the Sun entering Sagittarius on November the 21st. We have Venus entering Sagittarius right at the end of November the 30th. So there's a lot of energy here, which means there's going to be a lot of reassessing and reevaluating, but also a lot of developments occurring in this area of life. And then Mercury retrograde will re-enter Scorpio on November the 18th, moving into your fifth house of joy, happiness, pleasure, leisure, self-expression, as well as romance, dating, and relationships. So that's going to be another main focus because you've got a lot of Scorpio energy happening. So Mercury retrograde in the fifth house is going to make you reassess, reevaluate this area of life, such as how are you experiencing fun? How are you experiencing joy? What are you doing to express yourself? Are you expressing your truest self? And it's going to make you feel more analytical in this area of life because Mercury is the mind and thinking. It's also going to make you reflect and think about relationships, and it's going to have more of a spiritual feel to it because it is in the sign Scorpio. And we have loads of Scorpio energy happening because we've got Venus entering Scorpio November the 6th. So this is when relationships can get very intense. You can feel very passionate, very sensual. It's great for expressing yourself and your creativity. This could help you work on some any type of relationship issues and support you in transforming relationships. We also have a full moon in Taurus where the sun will be in your fifth house in the sign of Scorpio and the moon will be in Taurus opposite in your 11th house of friendships, groups, and networks. So there could be a lot of changes happening in both these areas of life. These energies are supporting you to express yourself more. They're helping you to be in relationships that are more spiritually fulfilling and allow you to express yourself and be your true self and have more fun. And also friendships, groups, and networks are going to play a huge role. There may be people that exit your life, or there may be people that come into your life. There may be significant changes or transformations in your hopes and wishes for the future, or something creative occurs where you're fully able to really unleash your true spiritual, creative gifts and abilities as well. Now, during this full moon in Taurus, we've got some intensity because Uranus and Mars will be in an opposition. During this time, Uranus will be at 0 degrees of Gemini and Mars will be at 0 degrees of Sagittarius, which is impacting your 12th and 6th house axis. It's showing that you need more structure and balance and harmony in both of these areas of life. So you need more time and space for your spirituality, your creativity, your alone time, as well as you need more balance and harmony in your everyday life, your wellness, self-care, as well as your work, because it seems like these energies are kind of at odds and they're in a conflict and they need more balance and more space and room to breathe because they're very freedom independent energies as well. Then we have a new moon in Scorpio happening on November the 20th, and this new moon in Scorpio is again emphasizing all that I've spoken about, the fifth house. New moons bring new beginnings, new changes, and new chapters and developments. This new moon will be opposing Uranus, so everything that you've been feeling from the beginning of November really comes to its fruition during this new moon, and something can change regarding either your friend circle, 11th house matters, hopes and wishes for the future, or especially your creativity, your self-expression, joy, pleasure, harmony, and relationships. There could be something that changes very profoundly, significantly, something that has been long overdue, that really supports you in your spiritual creative expression or supports you in moving forward in a relationship. And it's been long overdue, this transformation. Jupiter will be going retrograde on November the 11th in your sign. So this is impacting your identity, sense of self, life path, and purpose. Now, Jupiter is about expansion. And for you in the first house, this new cycle, this new beginning, this new chapter. But it's going retrograde to teach you about boundaries, because Jupiter can be very extravagant and overdoer and very excessive, which can sometimes lead to problems and self-destruction. So during this process, it's going to support you in learning boundaries that are nurturing and nourishing for the soul. And it's going to give you a better idea and understanding of who you are, your identity, and how to move forward with knowing your self-worth, knowing who you are, knowing when you need to maintain balance in your life as well. So Cancer rising, wishing you all the best this month. Take care, and I'll speak with you soon. Leo rising, let's get into your November horoscope. November is action-packed. There's so much going on, retrogrades, and a lot of intensity because it is Scorpio season. I'm going to start off with the retrogrades, and then I'll get into all the other changes. Now, retrogrades are essential and crucial for our soul development and our evolution. Yes, they make us go back into the past, and they make us slow down and reflect. However, it's pivotal for our self-growth because they help us to master certain areas of our life by going over them. Sometimes you got to go over certain areas of your life. Sometimes you got to go over certain aspects of life so that you can understand them better and that so you can then move forward. Now, on November the 7th, Uranus, which is currently in retrograde, re-enters Taurus. So it will move back into your 10th house of career goals and ambitions, and that's where there'll be more focus. Now, even though you've been through this energy for the last several years, it's time to go over it one more time so that you can accumulate more wisdom and grow more further. So that's going to be quite a highlight in the next couple of months where you may find yourself changing and evolving and also just experiencing more freedom and independence in this area of life. Then we have November the 11th, Jupiter retrogrades in the sign of Cancer. So it will retrograde in your 12th house, which will support you in going more deeper into your spiritual beliefs, your spiritual practices, your emotional self, your sensitivities. It will even support you to go deeper in your creative expression. So if you're working on creative projects, this Jupiter retrograde can help you to reconnect with what actually fulfills you creatively, which is more than just the pleasure and joy you get from it. Like, is it actually spiritually fulfilling as well? Is it more spiritually in alignment as well? And is it connected to your spirituality? Is it divinely inspired? Or do you need to kind of reevaluate what is your creative source? So that's also going to be a very strong energy in the month of November. Let's get into Mercury retrograde because yes, it's Mercury retrograde season. So November the 9th, Mercury retrograde is going to happen in the sign of Sagittarius, which means it will be impacting your 5th house. So it will start off in your 5th house. So we're looking at the house of joy, the house of creativity, self-expression, and also romance and dating. So there'll be a lot of focus on going over this energy and perhaps kind of trying different ways of expressing yourself. Perhaps your creativity will be quite a focus this month, and you're looking at different sources of creativity or how you fulfill yourself, how you experience or feel more joy, or this may even be connected to relationships that you're having to kind of go over some relationship stuff so that you can come to a conclusion of where are you at in this relationship or situation. Or it may even be as simply as getting back into a place in your relationship where there's more romance, where there's more sensuality. That could also be the case as well. Now, Mercury retrograde will re-enter Scorpio. So it will re-enter Scorpio November the 18th, where the focus will go into home and family in your personal life. So that's where there'll be more focus and more of your attention, your mind, and perhaps even strong, intense conversations will happen, or there may even be like this psychic pull in this area of life, a lot of intuition, a lot of wisdom flowing, which can support you in doing a lot of ancestral healing as well. Now, Mercury goes direct on November the 29th, and that's when the energy will then gradually, as the days go by, start to move forward, and you'll start to get more clarity in these areas of life. And as we get into December, you'll perhaps understand more of the spiritual purpose of this retrograde energy and how it has supported you and still will continue to support you. Let's get into the changes. So we've got November the 4th, Mars enters Sagittarius. So Mars will enter your 5th house, and this will also give you a lot of creative energy. It will support you in creating, it will support you in manifesting as well. It will support, and the reason why I say support you in manifesting is because Mars is a doer, whatever it wants, it's a go-getter, it gets things done. There's no waiting with Mars. Mars is ready to conquer. It can also give you a lot of ambition and drive and confidence, and also support you in expressing yourself and really freeing yourself as well. It gives you this fearlessness, and that's where there could be also a lot of focus in terms of having fun and experiencing pleasure. Be careful with Mars, because Mars can sometimes overdo it and it's a bit of a risk taker, so bear that in mind. Now, we also have Venus changing signs. So November the 6th, Venus enters Scorpio in your 4th house. So that's where there'll be a lot of focus on home and family. That's where you may find a lot of joy and pleasure, or you may want to bring more harmony and peace into this area of life. And then Venus moves into Sagittarius on, let me have a look for you, November the 30th, right at the end of the month. And it moves into your 5th house, and Venus loves being in the 5th house. Oh my goodness, Venus is just thriving in the 5th house. So if you're working on expressing yourself, whether you work with like photography, film, art, self-expression, fashion, anything creative and artistic, this could really support you. This could also be a time where you're really enjoying yourself, experiencing a lot of pleasure, and it can really support you in romance, dating, and relationships. Now, we also have the Sun entering Sagittarius on November the 21st, which is also amplifying this area of life. And again, it's really bringing a lot of attention, focus, and supporting you in your creative endeavors. Saturn goes direct in Pisces on November the 27th, so it will go direct in your 8th house. And as the time goes by in December, you'll start to understand the lessons of this energy, and it will start to bring you more clarity and move forward and develop forward. Let's get into the lunar events. So we've got a full moon in Taurus happening on November the 5th at 13 degrees. This full moon is impacting your 4th house and your 10th house. So home, family, career goals, and ambitions is where the focus is at. And this is going to be quite key for you, because this energy will develop further and further and further throughout November. Because when we get into November the 20th and we have a new moon in Scorpio, although you're going to have a lot of focus on your 4th house of home, family, and how you heal and retreat and rejuvenate your sense of safety, security, and belonging, the sun, the moon, Mercury will all be here, so there could be a lot of focus, a lot of emotions, a lot of conversations happening here. This could be moving homes, this could be just working on family relationships, this could be working on your sense of belonging. There's also a lot of focus on career goals and ambitions, because this new moon and Uranus at the time will be in an opposition. So this shows that the full moon and the new moon that's happening, the key focus is regarding your career goals and ambitions, feeling free and independent in those areas of life, or wanting change, establishing change, as well as finding a sense of serenity and peace and harmony and belonging regarding home and family life. So there's an imbalance, it's showing tension, but as we get into November and we get into these celestial lunar events, you'll start to see developments happening. So there could be changes and transformations. So that's where there's a lot of focus, your 10th house, your 4th house, as well as your 5th house. So Leo rising, take care. May this month be all that you hope and wish it to be, and may it work in your favor. Speak with you soon. Virgo rising, let's get into your horoscope for November. November is a highly anticipated month because there's so much happening. So many transits, retrogrades, planets going direct, and a lot of intensity because it's Scorpio season. I want to kick off with the retrogrades. So we have Mercury, the planet of communication, the mind, travel, going retrograde this month. We have Jupiter, the planet of expansion and wisdom, going retrograde, and we have Uranus, which is going to re-enter Taurus in retrograde motion. So a lot of going back, a lot of revisiting past situations and themes and cycles. And retrogrades do support us in our spiritual growth and evolution. They support us to master a certain energy of the past. I want to start off with Uranus re-entering Taurus on November the 7th, which means it's moving back into your 9th house. This area of life is focused on higher learning, expanding your horizons, your mind, learning philosophies, wisdom, as well as travel. When Uranus re-enters this area of life, Uranus wants more freedom and independence through this area of life. And if it doesn't get that freedom and independence and that stimulation that it wants, it starts to become restless and frustrated. And that's when it can become really chaotic. So this energy is going to focus on your mind, especially because through your mind is how you're getting stimulated by new experiences, new ideas, adventures, philosophies, and you may want to go over certain philosophies that you believe in or follow, or you may even want to explore new philosophies, learn new things that expand your mind even more further. And this also may make you want to travel more as well, so you can expand your horizons. Let's move on to the next retrograde, which is Mercury. Mercury retrogrades in Sagittarius on November the 9th. So it will begin in your 4th house of home and family life and your personal life, stability and security. So that's where there'll be a lot of mental focus and a lot of revisiting and slowing down, going over this area of life. So we're looking at home, we're looking at family, we're looking at your personal life, what makes you feel secure and stable, what makes you, or what should I say, gives you a sense of belonging. That's what's going to be really on your mind, and that's where you're perhaps kind of making changes. And then Mercury re-enters the 3rd house because it moves back into Scorpio November the 18th, which goes back home really, because Mercury is at home in the 3rd house. This has to do with the mind, it has to do with learning, it has to do with communication, it has to do with your daily environment, and that's where the focus starts to shift back into. So that's where the energy is going to move between the 4th and the 3rd house with Mercury. So there's a lot of reflecting, slowing down, and really considering a lot of things regarding the 4th house. When it comes to your 3rd house, there may be some profound conversations that you're having within yourself in a dialogue, going over a lot of thoughts of the past, really trying to figure things out, calculate, analyze. That's Mercury in the 3rd house, and come to certain conclusions. Also, there could be some conversations that you have to go over as well that have been long overdue. And then November the 11th, we have Jupiter, the planet of expansion and wisdom, retrograding in the sign of Cancer, which is in your 11th house of groups, friendships, acquaintances, social networks, and hopes and visions for the future. So that's an energy that is also gonna make you reflect more, slow down in this area, and reevaluate how this area of life is expanding you and how is it supporting you to feel more joyous, happy, as well as how is it supporting your spiritual growth and evolution. Now let's move on to the changes we're having. So we have very intense energies happening. We've got, first of all, I want to start off with November the 4th. Mars changes out of Scorpio into Sagittarius, so it's going to move out of your 3rd house into your 4th house of home and family, and that's where there's going to be a lot of energy this month as well because of the retrograde energy. We also are going to experience Venus here. Now, Venus does shift from Scorpio into Sagittarius throughout November, and the focus is on home and your family life and your personal life, stability, security, and where you find your sense of belonging. So there could be a lot of energy, stamina, momentum, and a lot of development occurring in this area of life. With Mars, you got to be careful because Mars shows where our momentum and stamina is at and where we're developing further at, but it can also show us where we're having like conflict as well, and that could be at home or with family members or in your personal life or even just with yourself and where you feel like you belong, or even with yourself in terms of stability and security. So that's something to be mindful of, but other than that, Mars shows where there's going to be developments. And speaking of developments, we've got a really intense full moon and new moon happening this month. Starting off with a full moon in Taurus. Now, the full moon is intertwined with the new moon in Scorpio. So November the 5th, we've got a full moon in Taurus. So we're going to have the sun in your 3rd house and the moon in your 9th house. So this is showing that there's a lot of focus when it comes to your mind, your thoughts, your philosophies, beliefs, as well as communication and learning and travel. That's a big one. So with this energy, even though it's a full moon in Taurus, there seems to be a lot of tension because during this time, Uranus will still be in Gemini in your 10th house of career goals and ambitions, and Mars will be in Sagittarius, and they both will be at 0 degrees opposing each other, which creates a lot of conflict and imbalance, and it has a lot to do with restlessness, frustration, and it wants to break free and be independent and free. And it's showing that between home and career goals and ambitions, there's an imbalance. These two areas of life are not really flowing, or they're not in sync. And then on top of that, you've got the full moon, which is happening in the 3rd and 9th house, which is showing there also needs to be balance between these areas of life. And through that tension, it's going to push you to make changes and developments so that you can balance out the 10th and the 4th house, which is a main focus this month, as well as when it comes to certain adventures or traveling endeavors, or when it comes to your beliefs, higher learning, wisdom, and communication. There could be transformations occurring in that area of life as well. And this goes into and develops into when we get to the new moon in Scorpio on November the 20th. So the new moon in Scorpio is going to happen in your 3rd house with the sun and the moon and Mercury in the house of communication, the mind, and learning, and your daily travels and environments. However, Uranus at that time will be in Taurus, and it will be in your 9th house, and it will be opposing this new moon. So again, it's adding more frustration and restlessness because this energy really wants to break free. It wants to really expand, but it seems like the new moon in Scorpio, there's a lot of emotional depth, a lot of emotional intensity and sensitivities happening, especially when it comes to what you're thinking. Even though the moon is very emotional, but there's a lot of mental energy going on, especially with the retrograde energy as well. So there's a lot you're navigating through. And through this new moon, again, with that restlessness and frustration, you can definitely push through, persevere through, and make a lot of changes regarding the 3rd and 9th house axis, which is a main focus when it comes to November this month. Now, we also have the sun entering Sagittarius on November the 21st. So again, emphasizing, shedding light, expanding your 4th house of home and family. That's again, a lot of focus is there. And we also have Saturn going direct in Pisces on November the 27th, which will be in your 7th house of relationships. So this energy is now going to move forward, which means you'll gain more clarity, and this area of life will also start to develop further. So there's a lot going on this month. I mean, it's a lot to comprehend, I know. But to simplify it, there's just a lot of focus this month when it comes to your 3rd house, your 9th house, which is the communication, the mind, learning, and travel axis, as well as your 10th house and 4th house. So the 10th house being career goals and ambitions, 4th house being home, family, stability, and security. And the 4th house is very much taking the center focus because of Sun, Mars, and Venus, and we got a Mercury retrograde happening here. So Virgo rising, wishing you all the best this month, and I'll speak with you soon. Hey Libra rising, let's get into your astrology for November. So November is action-packed, and it's quite a intense month. We've got retrogrades, and we've got intense Scorpio energy. Let's start off with a retrograde. So November the 7th, Uranus, the planet of change, re-enters Taurus in its retrograde motion, which means it's going to re-enter your 8th house of shared finances, resources, intimacy, and deep spiritual transformation. This energy is an energy you've been going through for several years, but now the astrology is asking for you to go back, revisit this energy, and learn a few more spiritual lessons so that you can really shift, change, and evolve, because Uranus is a planet of change. And what this astrology shows is this is where you are seeking change and where you are seeking a breakthrough. And this energy is going to continue until next year of April. So for the next couple of months, it's about revisiting this area of life, making breakthroughs, innovating this area of life, shifting, changing. With Uranus in the 8th house, there can also be a lot of spiritual shifts and changes, spiritual epiphanies and awakenings. We also have Jupiter going retrograde in the sign of Cancer on November the 11th, which will be impacting your 10th house of career goals and ambitions. Jupiter is known as a benefic, where it expands whatever area of life it moves into. Sometimes Jupiter can overdo it, and it can be extremely positive, where it doesn't see some of the things that it needs to really focus on and understand more profoundly. This retrograde energy gives us the opportunity to look at where we are kind of overdoing it or where we're being too positive, so we know our boundaries and limits. It kind of grounds us so that we can focus on this area of life with just being more realistic, but also still being confident, still being optimistic, still having that faith, still enjoying the energy of Jupiter, but just knowing our limits so that we don't get into any problems later on because of just being so positive. Let's get into the Mercury retrograde. So Mercury retrograde kicks off on November the 9th in Sagittarius. It's going to start off in your third house. The third house is the mind. It's about learning, thinking, processing information, communication in your daily environments and daily travels. So with the third house energy, this is going to be really strong because we've got Mars entering Sagittarius on November the 4th. We've got the Sun entering Sagittarius on November the 21st. We've got Venus entering Sagittarius on November 30th. So this is going to be a very important area of life this month, with Mercury being in a area of life that it just embodies. It's going to have a lot to do with thinking a lot, thinking about past situations, thinking about what's currently going on in your life, just being very analytical, more than just the typical Mercury being in the third house. This is about just being over the top with your thinking, overthinking, over analyzing, and communication is going to be really significant. There may be some conversations that are long overdue or have been brewing up for quite some time, and this is a time where you have them, but they have a purpose, they have a spiritual meaning, and it can really support in doing shadow work or doing a lot of healing, like saying things that you've been carrying or holding on, but this energy supports you to let it all out. November the 18th, this retrograde energy moves back into Scorpio, which means it's going to be impacting your resources. This is also the area of life that rules over money manifestation, finances, and self-worth. So that's where the focus is going to be. That's where you're going to be thinking and analyzing. With the Scorpio energy, it's also very much of an overthinker and an over-analyzer. But the way you analyze and think is more intuitively. It's more spiritually. And this area of life is going to be really important because we've got so much Scorpio energy happening. And it goes very much hand in hand with a full moon in Taurus as well as a new moon in Scorpio. November the 5th, we have a full moon in Taurus, which is impacting your 2nd and 8th house. So the sun will be in the 2nd house. That's where your core focus is at when it comes to finances, resources, what you own, and your self-worth. And you've got the moon in the 8th house, which is your emotions, your emotional attachment, and what's really going on in your inner realm. And the 8th house is shared finances, shared resources, intimacy, deep spiritual transformation. So this opposition is wanting to come into harmony, and the tension can push you into making a shift or a change for that transformation to occur. Now, there's two more other areas of life that are being impacted during this full moon in Taurus. That's your 3rd house and your 9th house. During this full moon, Uranus will actually be in Gemini at 0 degrees, and Mars will be in Sagittarius in your 3rd house at 0 degrees, opposing each other. This is showing also a lot of tension regarding your mind, what you're thinking, and your thoughts and your communication. And it seems like you're kind of like at odds here as well. So there could be a lot of things that you're getting off your chest. There could be a lot of releasing through your conversations with other people or the communication that's occurring during this time. Mars and Uranus in opposition can get really frustrating, and it can make you really restless. And with Mars and Uranus in opposition, this could also be a confrontational energy. As much as it can support you in releasing and letting things off your chest, letting go of certain things you've been holding on to through saying them out loud, before all of that, you got to still be mindful that this is an opposition. And they're very strong energies. They're very free-spirited and independent, and they're very egotistical energies. So when they're in an opposition, this could also show conflict with other people as well. So just be mindful of that. So the focal points in your chart this month, we're looking at the 2nd and 8th house axis. We're looking at the 3rd and 9th house axis. We're also looking at the 10th house with Jupiter. And we also have Saturn going direct in Pisces in your 6th house of daily life routine, health, wellness, and work. And there's also a lot of intensity. Remember, we've got Venus entering Scorpio November the 6th, so you may be very intense in love and relationships, very passionate, and it can also be a time where you can tune back into your sensuality as well. So hang on tight. I know it's retrograde season, it's overwhelming, but everything is divinely planned and there's a reason behind everything, and it's to support us in our evolution. And this month can feel like everything is happening all at once, and that's because time is just moving really fast and we're getting a lot of that soul spiritual work done. So Libra rising, wishing you all the best, and I'll speak with you soon. Hey Scorpio rising, let's get into the astrology for November. It is quite a month. It is a wild ride for sure. There's retrogrades, there's so much Scorpio energy. We've got your full moon happening in your opposite sign. We've got your annual new moon, Venus in your sign, Mercury retrograde in your sign. Wow, let's get into it. I want to start off with all the retrogrades. So November the 7th, Uranus re-enters Taurus, which means it re-enters your 7th house of relationships and other people. And just when you thought, phew, finally, Uranus is out of my 7th house, well, it's back. It's back. Now, for the last several years, you've probably been going through profound relationship changes and learning a lot about yourself through that, because relationships and other people are spiritual mirrors. They're holding up a mirror. We're all holding up mirrors for one another. Now, even though you've gone through this energy for several years, it's kind of back. There may be some things that you still need to kind of overcome or still need to grow from, learn from, and evolve from. And this could add restlessness, frustration, unpredictability when it comes to relationships. Depending on your chart, this could be impacting you in the sense of, if you're in a relationship, you probably want more freedom or independence, or if you're single, you just want a change, something different, something you've never experienced before. Or you may feel like your relationship status is kind of like unpredictable, like you don't know where you're at, but there is a deeper meaning and deeper purpose behind this, which is going to unfold throughout the next couple of months, because this energy is not going to be complete until next year, April, so it is quite a ride. We also have Jupiter going retrograde in the sign of Cancer on November the 11th, which will be impacting your 9th house of the mind, higher learning, education, travel, adventures, faith, optimism. And with Jupiter here going retrograde, it's just going to help you to see some of the boundaries you need, because Jupiter can be very over the top, it can be very excessive, and sometimes it can overdo it to the point of destruction. The key word here is nourishment and nurturing yourself, and that's what this Jupiter retrograde is going to help you with, especially regarding 9th house matters. Let's get into Mercury retrograde. So we've got Mercury retrograde kicking off in Sagittarius. So this energy is going to kick off in your 2nd house, and there's a lot of focus on your 2nd house this month. Yeah, you've got a Mercury retrograde here. You're also, throughout the month as it goes by, you're going to have Mars starting off in Sagittarius, and you're going to have the Sun entering Sagittarius. You're going to have Venus in Sagittarius, Mercury in Sagittarius. So a lot of focus in the 2nd house, which has got to do with finances, resources, what you own. This is a material realm. This is also what you are almost possessive about as well, in terms of what you own, and also your self-worth. That's going to be a main focus this month. And you may see a lot of developments, even through Mercury retrograde. Mercury retrograde is going to make you go over certain things. It's going to make you reassess and reanalyze. And all the rest of the energy is going to be making significant changes here. Okay, so a lot of developments in this area of life. Then you're going to have Mercury retrograde re-enter your sign, entering your 1st house on November the 18th. And that's going to be all about you, your identity, your sense of self, also purpose and life path. And this could also impact relationships, okay? That's a big one. Now, with this energy, the 1st house is also going to be really profound, because as soon as you start off November, you've got Mars and the Sun. You're going to have Venus entering your sign on November the 6th. And then you're going to have Uranus re-entering Taurus on November the 7th. So you got Venus and Uranus in this opposition. So emphasizing on relationships, balancing relationships. Part of you or your partner may want more freedom, independence. You want to just merge together, and you're like all or nothing, and you're finding yourself just being really possessive or just really intense about relationships. So there could be a lot of relationship stuff. And also we've got a full moon happening in Taurus, so the sun will be in your first house, the moon will be in your 7th house on November the 5th. Again, this is emphasizing on you, your identity, your sense of purpose, your path, and relationships and other people. So there's going to be quite a shakeup. Feelings may change. Life paths may change. Relationship statuses may change. The people you know may change. You may change. There's going to be a huge shift, a huge transformation, especially if you have 13 degrees of either Taurus or Scorpio in your chart or close by any planets. So it's going to be pivotal and profound. And during the full moon in Taurus, we've also got Mars and Uranus in opposition. During this time, the focus is going to be on your 2nd and 8th house axis. So it's about you, what you own, your self-worth, and the energy opposite that is the 8th house, which is what you share with others, intimacy and deep spiritual transformation. So that energy is going to be at odds, and there's going to be frustration and tension, which is going to ripple out throughout your chart. So there could be a lot of changes, a lot of things coming to an end during this time, making room for new beginnings, new chapters, and new cycles. And yeah, it's going to be quite an intense time, but that frustration or the tension that has been brewing up is going to just come into fruition really strongly during this full moon, and you may see something significantly change in your life. And whether it being a relationship coming to an end, or a relationship changing, or whether it being just you and your goals and your mindset just changing, and you just jumping onto a new path in life. And this is connected with a new moon in Scorpio. So on November the 20th, we've got a new moon in Scorpio. Sun, Moon, Venus, and Mercury will be in the sign of Scorpio. So much focus, emphasis on you, your life path, your identity, your purpose, some of your goals. And it's very spiritual. It's going to be very spiritually transforming. Now, we are going to have Uranus opposite this energy, and it just emphasizes just everything I've just spoken about. So it seems like there's this constant emphasis on you and relationships, you and other people, and how you're making it all work together, or what changes you need to make. And during this time, there could be something that changes significantly. There could be new beginnings, new cycles, new chapters, or developments occurring, especially regarding you and the path that you're on and the goals that you have. So Scorpio, it's quite an intense month, and there's a lot of emphasis on you and your zodiac this month. And yeah, it's going to be a wild one. Keep in touch. Let me know what's happening for you guys, and I'll speak with you soon. Take care. Hey Sag Rising, let's get into the November astrology and your horoscope. November is action-packed. We got retrogrades, we got intense lunar energy, and we've got your season. So shout out to all those Sag that are celebrating their solar return. So let's get into the retrogrades first. November the 7th, Uranus re-enters Taurus. So it's already in retrograde, and because it just really got into Gemini, it's re-entering Taurus in retrograde motion back into your 6th house of daily life habits, self-care, health, wellness, and work. So that's where the focus will be. Now, retrograde support us to, yes, they help us to slow down and reflect more, but ultimately it's about spiritual growth, evolution, and mastery of an area of life. So there's some unfinished business, and Uranus is like, we just got to go a bit back, master the energy, and then move forward. So this could support you to really become more sovereign in taking care of yourself. It could support you in learning about new ways of supporting yourself, mind, body, soul, spirit, and also it may support you in making changes at work that bring you more independence and freedom. we also have Mercury retrograde happening, and it's happening in your sign to begin with. So November the 9th, Mercury goes retrograde in your sign, in your first house of self-identity. This is the most sensitive area of your life for you because it represents you, it represents your life path and your goals as well, what you want to achieve in this life. So when you got Mercury in your sign, yeah, there could be a lot of hiccups happening only to reveal greater truth to you. Now, because Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter and it's about wisdom, expansion, it's about adventure, it's about beliefs, philosophies, and wisdom. This could support you in expanding in all those that I've just mentioned. However, before you expand in that, you have to kind of take a step back, and you may even reevaluate life during this time. You may reevaluate yourself, your identity, relationships as well, where you're at in life, some of your goals and ambitions, and there may be a lot of significant and profound conversations that happen. There could be conversations you're having with yourself, like the inner dialogue, but also with other people, especially regarding relationships, because Mercury retrograde is opposing your 7th house. Then Mercury retrograde re-enters Scorpio, and it moves into your 12th house, where the focus goes into your spirituality, it goes into your connection with the divine, the universe, it goes into your sensitivities, your intuition, dream time. This is a very isolated area of life, so this is a time where you may be thinking a lot and reflecting on the past and some of your past actions and past situations and what you've learned from them, what still is lingering around. And the 12th house is a very karmic energy because it's the last house in astrology, so it reflects the past and it reflects the future. So there's a lot of shadow work that you may be also doing, like really getting into the core of who you are, some of your beliefs, your connections with the divine, the universe, whatever you believe in, God, faith, as well as your spirituality and spiritual practices, and learning some spiritual lessons, and then thinking about how you can actually move forward in life. So it's going to be a very important transit for you. Then November the 11th, we've got Jupiter that retrogrades in Cancer in your 8th house of shared finances, resources, as well as intimacy and spiritual transformation. So there's more wisdom coming here. There's more expansion coming here as well. But before the expansion and the wisdom, there's some lessons to really understand, embody, and then you'll see that energy really flourish. We also have Saturn going direct in Pisces on November the 27th, so it goes direct in your 4th house of home and family, security and stability. So all the lessons you've been going through for the last couple of months, it's time to now move forward with them and really integrate them, and this area of life will now start to also develop further. Mercury retrograde does go direct on November the 29th, so right at the end of November. Now, speaking of the changes happening and all this Sagittarius energy, well, we've got Mars entering your sign on November the 4th, and we have Venus entering your sign right at the end at November the 30th, and the Sun Sagittarius season happens officially on November the 21st. So all this energy is going to be in your first house of self-identity, life path, and goals and ambitions. And typically you'd think the 10th house is goals and ambitions, and it is, but the first house, you can find a lot of purpose and sense of self and identity, which gives you the kind of like drive to what it is you want to accomplish and what it is you want to achieve. And yes, you find more of that in the 10th house as well, but the first house can reveal a lot of that as well. So a lot of focus on yourself, a lot of focus on your identity, a lot of focus on getting a lot of goals ticked off your bucket list. Mars gives you a lot of stamina, momentum, and it supports you in developing forward, and it supports you in succeeding. With Venus here, you may really prioritize love and relationships, or prioritize how you appear, your aesthetics, your style, beauty as well, and the sun is just shining its light onto you, so it's giving you a lot of energy, a lot of confidence. It's giving you a lot of ability to really showcase your gifts, talents, and go for what you want as well. So it's a very special time for you. Now let's get into the lunar events. So these lunar events are really intertwined and connected because there's kind of like a repetition in its energy. So to begin with, November the 5th, we've got a full moon in Taurus at 13 degrees. So this energy is occurring in your 12th and 6th house axis. So the sun will be in the 12th house and the moon will be in the 6th house. So we're looking at mind, body, soul, and spirit, ether, earth. We're looking at your spirituality. We're looking at the mundane material realm. We're looking at your daily life, how it's structured, habits, routine, as well as your sensitivities, where you feel isolated, your creativity, your connection with divine. This energy in these areas of life is super important because they're going to take a lot of the focus in November, including your first house, of course, as well. Now, when you got a full moon, it's showing where we need kind of equilibrium, where we need more balance so that we can really flourish. And full moons do support us in releasing, letting go, so we can transform. Now, this full moon is really intense because you're going to have Mars like literally just entered your sign during this time, and then we are going to have Uranus at 0 degrees of Gemini opposing each other. This is showing where there's imbalance and friction. And it seems like with Mars in your first house, you're feeling very defensive or very assertive, or you just feel like you want to take the lead. And Uranus, this could even be like a person feels like they are wanting to feel free and independent in a relationship, and it seems like you're both not seeing eye to eye, or it doesn't even have to be a relationship, it could just be somebody very significant, but it seems like you're just two very strong individuals during this time, and you're just not seeing eye to eye, and you're kind of clashing. So that's where there needs to be more balance. Now, this is going to ripple out into the 12th and 6th house, and there may be some changes occurring regarding your daily life routine, how your life is structured, how you take care of yourself, health, wellness, or your work, where you feel restless and you need a shift. Perhaps you want something that is more in harmony with your spirituality, your spiritual practices. Perhaps you feel like you need more freedom and independence, and that tension may push you to make those changes, and then that transformation may occur. Now, if we go into the new moon in Scorpio, which is happening on November the 20th, this is all happening in your 12th house. So we're going to have the sun, moon, and Mercury at 28 degrees in your 12th house. So this is really emphasizing where you perhaps feel kind of alone, or where you feel kind of isolated, or this could be about your escaping tendencies, or your connection with the divine, universe, God, your sensitivities, your creativity, your spirituality, intuition, psychic energy. And there's a lot of focus there, so that's supporting you to strengthen your spiritual abilities and creative gifts and abilities. But also, Uranus at this time of the new moon, will have moved back into Taurus, and it's going to be opposing this new moon, which is again kind of elaborating on the full moon's energy, where there's tension between the 12th and the 6th house. It seems like, again, you're feeling restless, you're feeling frustrated, you need more independence, you need more freedom, and this could be the time that you see that manifestation. So whether it being more freedom or independence happening in your everyday life, like your daily life and daily habits and structures and patterns, routine, or whether it being at work, you're feeling or seeing that change. So a lot of stuff is happening in November. I know it can feel overwhelming, but it's kind of like a pivotal time where life is just really moving fast, and there's so many changes happening almost simultaneously, and there's a lesson each day to be learned and embodied. So wishing you all the best. May the changes really support you and be in your favor, and I will speak with you soon. Take care. Hey Cap Rising, let's get into the astrology of November. So November is action-packed, there's retrogrades happening, a lot of intensity, a lot of mystical, magical energy. Let's start off with the retrograde. So starting off with November the 7th, we've got Uranus re-entering Taurus in retrograde motion, which means it's re-entering your 5th house of joy, happiness, self-expression, creativity, pleasure, romance, and dating. You've gone through this energy for several years. So because it's re-entering Taurus, you're quite familiar with it, and it's just asking you to elevate further in your self-expression, to go all out in adventures and having fun and expressing yourself to the fullest. It's asking you to free yourself in the 5th house, play more, have more fun. And that's quite a soul lesson for Capricorn dominance, because Capricorn is a very structured, serious, workaholic energy, whereas Uranus in the 5th house is like, just have fun, enjoy yourself, let loose, be spontaneous, express yourself, be creative. So that energy is going to be more in your life now, even though it has for several years and you've learned quite a lot and evolved from it, there's still a few more lessons to learn, a few more energies to incorporate, and so that you can really master this energy. We also have a Jupiter retrograde happening on November the 11th in your 7th house of relationships and other people. Jupiter is a very go big, go home type of energy, and it's known as a good luck energy. Typically, when we think of Jupiter, we think of expansion. It's going to expand the area of your life, expand your mind. And realistically, Jupiter, and those that know of astrology, or those that keep an eye out on their transits and they reflect on their transits, will know that whenever Jupiter has entered an area of life, sure, it may have brought forward many positive outcomes, but it can also overdo it in terms of if it makes a connection with another planet, say, for example, like Pluto or Saturn. Sometimes this energy can be very much of an amplifier, where it amplifies certain situations. And with seventh house matters, sure, you can attract new love into your life and relationships, but sometimes if you're already going through relationship issues, it can expand, or should I say amplify them even more. Now with retrograde motion, Jupiter is here to teach you how to slow down, how to know your boundaries with being excessive, because Jupiter has that impact, and you can say, well, I'm a Capricorn, I'm not excessive, I know my boundaries, I'm very structured, I'm ruled by Saturn. Yeah, but when we have certain transits, they influence us in different ways. That's why throughout our life we're going through many changes. Okay? Now, Jupiter isn't impacting you directly, but it is impacting relationships, which does impact you. So it's about going slow with these relationships and looking at, am I being too positive? Am I looking at this relationship from just a positive lens? Or am I actually being very sober with my approach towards relationships and these relationships healing and nurturing me? We also have Mercury going retrograde. Mercury retrogrades on November the 9th in Sagittarius and in Scorpio. So it changes between two signs. It starts off in your 12th house. Now, your 12th house is going to be very strong this month because you got Mars entering your 12th house, you got Venus entering your 12th house, you got the Sun entering here, and then you got Mercury kicking off its retrograde here. So what is the 12th house? 12th house is about spirituality, your creativity, your sensitivities. This is the area of life where you can find your escaping tendencies. You can get even more deep and get into karma and past lives. This is your connection with the divine, spirituality. And also this is the area of life where you can feel a little alone. It's where you feel a little isolated, or even kind of like restricted. So with all these planets, as well as Mercury kicking its retrograde here, you may be in your mind a lot, you may be in your head a lot, because Mercury is the planet of the mind, thinking, as well as communication and travel. So you can perhaps reflect on a lot of your sensitivities, or you may reflect on past situations that have been playing out in your life that have been very significant and profound. You may also think a lot or learn a lot and research a lot about spiritual topics or subjects. You can even get into astrology during this time, or any type of spiritual topic or subject that supports you in understanding connection between your mind, body, soul, spirit. Mercury here can also kind of make your conversations a little more spiritual as well. You may want to have spiritual conversations, meaningful conversations, more heart to hearts as well. Or on the other side, you may find yourself like not talking much but thinking more as well. Whenever you have a lot of 12th house energy, it's really important to have or be very aware of how you're feeling, your mind, body, soul, spirit, and make sure that you're not isolating yourself too much, because that can be destructive as well. So whatever comes up for you, thoughts and reflecting on the past, they're going to be very significant, because they're going to help you go through a lot of shifts and changes. Now, with Mercury going retrograde back into Scorpio, this is happening on November the 18th. It's going to move into your 11th house. So the 11th house is friendships, groups, networks, social circles. It's about hopes and visions for the future. So there may be a lot of going over certain friendships or groups, or having really strong, deep, intimate conversations that have been long overdue. There's a lot of emotion, a lot of depth there. You can do a lot of transformation, especially regarding your hopes and visions for the future. Thinking them through is reflecting kind of like analyzing as well. So it's going to be very meaningful, and you may also feel like you need to go a bit more deeper, because that's just typical Scorpio. You want to go beneath the surface, you want to get into the depths of it all. Let's move on to all the Scorpio energy, because since we're on the topic, the Scorpio energy is very strong this month, because we're going to have Venus that enters Scorpio November the 6th. We've got Mercury retrograde, of course, that I've just mentioned. We've got full moon in Taurus, which is impacting your 11th house as well as your 5th house, and a new moon in Scorpio. So there's so much Scorpio energy. Now, let's start off with a full moon. So November the 5th, we've got a full moon in Taurus. That's going to be impacting your 11th and 5th house axis. So this kind of reinforces everything that I already spoke about regarding having more fun, letting your hair loose, enjoying yourself, experiencing more pleasure and joy in your life, as well as expressing yourself. And relationships can also be key here, as well as your friend circle, friendships, and your hopes and visions for the future. There may be something that is released during this time. This could be regarding a friendship, letting a certain friend go because maybe they're just not in alignment with you, or letting a part of your self-expression, letting it out, releasing it, showcasing it, or letting even a fear out that has been preventing you from expressing your true self or preventing you from enjoying life. Okay? Now, this is not the only energy that is taking center stage during the full moon, because we also have Mars and Uranus in an opposition during this full moon. Now, during this time, Mars will be at 0 degrees of Sagittarius and Uranus will be at 0 degrees of Gemini. So that's going to be impacting your 12th and 6th house axis. So they're in a confrontation and they're very just at each other, and they're not seeing eye to eye, which is showing that there needs to be more balance between your daily life structure and routine, as well as your work life, your spiritual kind of routine, having a routine that stabilizes your nervous system as well, especially with Uranus being in the 6th house. That's just showing such an imbalance. So these energies, the 11th, the 12th house, the 5th house, the 6th house, they're really strong, and there may be a shift or a change or a transformation that occurs in either one of them. And what this energy is actually asking for you is to take care of yourself, is to prioritize yourself on all levels, not just on one level, for example, such as work. No, on all levels. Like, prioritize a part of you that needs to enjoy life, prioritize a part of you that needs more spiritual alone time, prioritize your creative needs. It's about prioritizing yourself, and it's very spiritual as well, because the sun will be in Scorpio. Now let's get on to the new moon in Scorpio. That's happening on November the 20th, and that's really focusing on your 11th house, as well as your 5th house, and I'll get to the reason why. Now, the 11th house is very significant here because you got the sun, the moon, and Mercury retrograde, and during this time, you'll also still have Venus in your 11th house, so friendships are going to take center stage, groups, networks you're part of, even your hopes and visions for the future. There could be a change here, something new begins here, or there's some development that occurs here. So it could be like a long-term goal that you've had, a hope, a vision, a wish, and during this time, it comes into fruition. Now, during this new moon in Scorpio, Uranus will have had moved back into Taurus. So it will be in an opposition with this new moon, and that is shaking things up. It's wanting more freedom, more independence, and you may feel very spontaneous during this time. You may feel very, even just restless and frustrated, but through that tension, you can create something that is really meaningful and purposeful. So Cap Rising, hold on tight. It is quite a ride this month. I'm wishing you all the best, and I'll speak with you soon. Hi Aquarius Rising. Let's get into your horoscope for November. November is a very busy, action-packed month. There's so much going on. Now, I want to start off with the retrograde energies. Now, retrograde support us in our spiritual growth, our spiritual journey, and they support us to master certain areas of our life so we can really integrate the wisdom, the knowledge, the lessons, and then really move forward to our next step in our spiritual journey and in our self-growth and evolution. Now let's get into all the retrogrades. So we've got Uranus that is in retrograde, but it changes from Gemini back into Taurus. So that's going to move out of your 5th house into your 4th house, where the focus then goes back onto home and your family life, personal life, and where you find your safety and security. So for a brief moment, I say brief moment, even though Uranus is very slow moving, a couple of months, the focus is going to be in this area of life. Now Uranus can feel very restless here. It wants to break free. It wants more independence. It wants change. So you're going to probably feel that more strongly during this retrograde period, but there's a lesson to learn, and through this energy you're going to learn what you've worked on so far and what still needs to be worked on, so you can really feel like you've mastered this area of life and that you feel more at home in this area of life. And what I mean by that is Uranus doesn't really feel at home in the 4th house, because 4th house, it's like family obligations, it's very structured, and there's tradition involved, and Uranus wants to break free. So when Uranus is in the 4th house, it has to learn how to make the 4th house its home. It has to lay the boundaries. It has to be very clear on what it needs, what it requires to feel its true self, to feel its independent, free, individual self. So that's where the focus is going to be regarding home, family, and your personal life. For some, this could be even moving around. Perhaps you're looking for a home, you're wanting to move around, and it may make you feel restless, or you're moving around a lot to find out, where you actually want to live. So that's going to be a key theme with Uranus moving back into the 4th house. Let's move on to Jupiter going retrograde. So Jupiter goes retrograde on November the 11th in the sign of Cancer. So 6th house energy is about self-care, your daily life routine tasks, how you take care of yourself, how you nurture yourself, how you take care of your health. This also has to do with work as well. With Jupiter here, it really expands all that I've just spoken about. With retrograde energy, it makes you really focus more on the spiritual side of this area of life, and it makes you kind of go over things that you probably have either been just looking at from a positive lens, or the things you've been overdoing. So it makes you slow down and look at what have you been overdoing in this area of life, or perhaps what you need to overdo more of. For example, do you need to put more focus, more energy in restructuring your everyday life, or do you need to put more energy and more focus regarding taking care of yourself or regarding work? So this may be a time where that's what Jupiter is making you go deeper into. Now we also have Mercury going retrograde this month. Now Mercury goes retrograde in Sagittarius on November the 9th, so it starts off in your 11th house. Friends, groups, networks, hopes, and visions for the future. So there may be a lot of back and forth regarding friends, groups, working on projects together, or maybe your hopes and visions for the future. You're focusing more on them and you're thinking about them. Maybe there's some restlessness here. Then the energy moves into Scorpio, which enters your 10th house. Now there's a focus more on your career goals and ambitions, and that's something that requires all your energy. And you're wanting to make some changes, but you're not sure. So this is a time where, again, deep thought and then taking time to really understand what you're requiring from this area of life and from this energy. So that's where the Mercury retrograde focus is. Remember, Mercury retrograde, it wants you to slow down. It wants you to think things through. Not rush into anything, but think things through. And with Mercury retrograde being in Scorpio, it's going to provide you with more intuition and being more in tune with your spiritual side, being more in touch with what you want on like a soul level as well, because this is an all or nothing energy. And then through that, you'll start to receive more clarity as this energy moves forward. And it moves forward when we get to the end of the month on November the 29th. And that's when, after that, and when we get into December, things will start to become more clear, and your headspace will also be more clear, and you'll be at a place where you'll look back and you'll be like, okay, I went through a couple of things in November, and I'm just at a much better space and with a much more clearer mind. Now, speaking of going direct, Saturn goes direct in Pisces on November the 27th, which is in your second house of money, resources, finances, and self-worth. So whatever lessons you've learned, now Saturn is like, okay, let's apply those lessons and let's now move forward. Remember, with retrogrades, it's about mastering an energy. Now let's move forward and talk about the planetary changes, because we've got Mars and Venus changing signs. So November the 4th, Mars enters Sagittarius, so it moves into your 11th house of friends, groups, networks, and hopes and visions for the future. So you could take a very leader role in terms of your friend group, your networking circle, and you could be seen as someone who's just really energetic, or you're very action oriented in this area of life. You're out and about, you're socializing, you're working more with your masculine energy and probably getting things done, like initiating collaborations, doing projects with people, or even when it comes to your hopes and visions for the future, you're really planning them and getting things done as well. Sometimes with Mars, it can also show conflict. So you may even get into like an ego battle with people, especially like friends or people you are acquainted with. So that's something to be mindful of. But overall, it gives you a lot of stamina, momentum in this area of life. So if you're really collaborating with people, it's a great time. And then we also have Venus that changes signs this month. So Venus on November the 6th moves into Scorpio, which moves into your 10th house of career goals and ambitions. So you're really finding pleasure from this area of life. You can be seen as someone who has a lot of charm and mystique. You can have this magnetism at work, and you can really also feel very creative, but you're inspired by your intuition. So it can really give you a lot of spiritual energy to accomplish a lot of goals as well in your career goals and ambitions. And then Venus at the end of the month, November the 30th, moves into Sagittarius, into your 11th house. So again, it's giving you a lot of charm, it's giving you a lot of charisma, and you may enjoy being around with people and socializing, and you may be also very popular during this time amongst your friends or even peers. Now let's get into the lunar energy because it's intense. We've got a full moon in Taurus on November the 5th. So that is impacting your 10th and 4th house axis. So career goals and ambitions and home and family life. So with a full moon, there's also a focus on Mars as well as Uranus, because during the full moon, Uranus will still be in Gemini at 0 degrees of Gemini, and Mars will be at 0 degrees Sagittarius. So this may also trigger friendships, groups, and your hopes and visions for the future, as well as home and family dynamic and career goals and ambitions. So these areas of life are really showing that you feel like you need to really break free, and you need more independence and more freedom, and you're feeling like you're getting pulled from each side and you feel just overwhelmed. And full moons do show where there's tension or imbalance and where we need to release and transform. The core focus is stemming from home and family as well as career goals and ambitions. So that's where there's an imbalance. So a breakthrough may occur during this full moon. And then that will be because of you just feeling restless, feeling like you need to break free, feeling like you need more independence and freedom, which is stemming from the Mars and Uranus energy at this time. So if you're working towards your career goals and ambitions, or even if home and family life is something that is really taking a lot of space in your life, this is when you may feel that breakthrough, but it's going to come through feeling that restlessness, feeling those intense emotions, because we are also going to be in Scorpio season during this time. So something can change regarding those areas of life this full moon in Taurus, okay? And the full moon in Taurus is at 13 degrees, so take a look at your chart where it is 13 degrees, especially in the fixed signs, because that will show and then give you more insight. Moving on. November the 20th, we've got a new moon in Scorpio. So this new moon in Scorpio is happening in your 10th house, again emphasizing career goals and ambitions, and this is quite a focus this month. During this new moon, which is happening at 28 degrees, we've got the sun, the moon, and Mercury all in your 10th house. So this shows that that's a lot of focus, a lot of your emotions, a lot of like what's just taking over your life, and where your mind's at, where your headspace is at. It's all got to do with career goals and ambitions. So you may be working on a lot of projects this time, and you may feel like this is a time where all your energy is going into this area of life. And during this new moon in Scorpio, you may even find yourself accomplishing certain goals or ambitions you have, or even when it comes to perhaps like a career change. By the time we get into this new moon, Uranus will be back in Taurus, and it will be opposing this new moon, which is also impacting the fourth house. So we're going back into the fourth house territory. Again, this is emphasizing on the full moon in Taurus. It's kind of like another extension of it, and it's showing that there needs to again be some change occurring in either one of these areas of life so you can feel free and independent. So Aquarius rising, there's so much going on this month. It's so overwhelming. I know, like, you're probably listening to me and being like, this is just going over my head. I know that's the intensity of this month, and there's a lot of going back into the past. And for you, the fourth house, home, family, and your personal life, and the 10th house, career goals and ambitions, are taking center stage in November. So that's where the core focus is, and that's where change and development will occur. So wishing you all the best. Hang on tight, and I'll speak with you soon. Much love. Pisces rising, welcome to your horoscope for November. So November is a pivotal month because there's so many retrogrades happening. It's Scorpio season. It's a month of transformation. I want to kick off with the retrogrades because we've got planet Uranus, a planet of change and innovation, going retrograde and re-entering Taurus. Now, it's currently already in retrograde, but it re-enters Taurus, which means it goes back into your third house. Now, you have really gone through this cycle for the last couple of years, so it's really been pushing you to break free, express yourself more. Your thoughts, your mind, how you think, how you process information, how you talk, communicate has been rapidly changing, even though the Uranus transit is a long transit. But you really, right now, you have really integrated that energy. But with Uranus retrograding back into the third house, there's just a few more lessons and a few more things to integrate and learn so that you can master this area of life. So there's going to be a lot of focus on your mind, thought process, learning, communication, daily environments, and travel. It's about freedom. It's about independence. It's about change. It's about insight. It's also about spirituality. So much more to learn there with this retrograde energy. Then we have Jupiter retrograding in the sign of Cancer on November the 11th, which is going to be impacting your fifth house. Jupiter loves being in the fifth house. It's happy, it's playful, it's just in heaven. But Jupiter retrograde is about where are we overdoing it. Now, with the fifth house, it's already the house of having fun, and Jupiter on top of that really gives you this need and desire to go big, go large, go excessive. And with this energy, it's important to know boundaries so you don't overdo it and become like destructive to yourself. So this retrograde can actually support you in learning about the boundaries with also experiencing pleasure and having fun. And are you experiencing those things in a healthy way, or are you overdoing it where it can become problematic? Keyword with Jupiter in Cancer is nurturing and nourishment. So are you having fun in a way that is nurturing to you? Are you experiencing pleasure that is nurturing? Are you working with your creativity that is nurturing to the soul? Is it nourishing the soul? That's really key with Jupiter in retrograde. So let's move on with Mercury retrograde, because that's a big one. Now, Mercury goes retrograde on November the 9th, but it moves into Sagittarius energy first, and then it will move into Scorpio energy later. So starting off, Mercury retrograde will be in your 10th house of career goals and ambitions. So that's where the focus is going to be. Now, there's a lot of focus in this area of life because this month we have Mars entering Sagittarius on November the 4th. We have the Sun entering Sagittarius on November the 21st, and we have Venus entering Sagittarius on November the 30th. So already off the bat, there's so much focus here, which means there could be a lot of changes, shifts, and developments. With Mercury retrograde, it's about going over a lot of things and really making sure that you are on the right page and you are in the right mind space, head space, because planet Mercury is the head, the mind, and there could be a lot of negotiating or going back and forth over certain decisions as well. But there's a lot of focus here, a lot of light, a lot of energy, which means a lot of developments as well. So it's a good month for that, regardless of Mercury being in retrograde. Then on November the 18th, Mercury will re-enter Scorpio and move back into your ninth house, where the focus moves back into your philosophies, your beliefs, your optimism, travel, adventure, learning. And it can really provide you with going really deep with your learning and your mind and your belief systems and philosophies. This may be a time where you're interested in taboo subjects or really deep esoteric spiritual topics and philosophies. If you're learning something, this could really support you in analyzing in a way that is just very quick, sharp, and precise. Again, even though Mercury is in retrograde, so there's a focus on slowing down, but there's also the focus on going over things, which can make you pick up on things that you probably missed in the past. So, you know, even though people see Mercury retrograde as a negative, it has a lot of positive end goals, the purpose with it. So it can really support you in that, and perhaps even just reevaluating some of like your worldly beliefs and philosophies. Mercury does go direct in Scorpio on November the 29th. But this energy of the ninth house and the third house is going to be really profound, because as soon as we enter November, we still have the sun in Scorpio. We're going to have Venus that enters Scorpio November the 6th. We've got a full moon in Taurus on November the 5th. So when we have this full moon, the sun will be in the ninth house and the moon will be in the third house. And what that's showing is that the third house and the ninth house really want to come together and merge to transform. So there could be a lot of emphasis on your mind, how you're thinking, your ideas, your beliefs, your, again, philosophies. Keyword there with this energy. Communication is a big one as well, because the moon in the third house shows that you need to release something that's been weighing heavy, something that's been on your chest, something that you've been wanting to say, speak out, something that you've been feeling. You want to express it. Like, that's key here as well. And this energy may actually provoke you or push you towards saying what's on your mind. Now, during this full moon, it's going to be an intense day, not because of the sun and the moon, but more so because of Uranus and Mars. So Mars will be in Sagittarius at 0 degrees, and Uranus will be in Gemini at 0 degrees. So there's an opposition between your 10th and 4th house and Mars and Uranus. So it seems like career goals and ambitions and home and family in your personal life are also taking a lot of limelight here during the full moon in Taurus. It seems like there's an imbalance, and there could be a lot of conflict that you need to resolve, or you feel like your freedom and your independence and your goals and your ambitions, home life, that they're not really coming into sync. So that may be something else that you're working through towards achieving balance and harmony in those areas of life. Now, if we get into the new moon in Scorpio November the 20th, that's going to occur in your ninth house. So you're going to have the sun and the moon and Mercury retrograde in your ninth house. And we're also going to have Venus here. So there's, again, so much light, so much energy, and so much focus on your beliefs and learning, education, travel, foreign places, as well as your philosophies. And this could be a time where there's a new beginning, a new chapter, a new cycle that occurs in this area of life. And it's going to be very spiritual, it's going to be very meaningful, and it's going to have a lot of depth and substance to it. And that, of course, is going to be based more so on your charts and the aspects you have. However, Uranus at this time is going to retrograde back into Taurus, and it will again oppose this energy. So it seems like that Taurus and Scorpio energy is really kind of confronting one another, and it, again, emphasis on balance, emphasis on harmony, emphasis on wanting freedom, wanting independence, wanting change, wanting something new that stimulates you. So you may see developments occurring in that area of life during this time. So that's November in a nutshell. It's a lot, I know. But like I said in the beginning of the video, there's so much going on this month. Hold on tight. You got this. And I'll speak with you soon. Take care.